Story 1. Emetophobia is the fear of vomiting. I can barely type that without feeling ill. Consumes me daily. As a result, I am also afraid of becoming pregnant, having children, and drinking too much. Story 2. My name is Michael, spelled with the letter B, and I am afraid of insects. Where is the letter B? There is a B. Story 3. I have a blood phobia. I cannot donate blood or become a surgeon. Story 4. I'm afraid of having too much money in my bank account. That's why I'm forever broke. Story 5. Trypanophobia, the fear of needles. I actually have medical post-traumatic stress disorder from when I was 11. After my tonsillectomy, I had to return to the emergency room, where several nurses tried, angrily and desperately, to find a vein. I never liked needles. I remember every injection hurting even as a child, but after that night it became a nightmare. It was a very painful and terrifying experience. I am slowly working on it in therapy because I am overdue for blood work. I can now take my mother to get blood work without hyperventilating in the waiting room, and that is a big accomplishment. The last time I tried to get blood work myself, I passed out and wet myself. I woke up to juice boxes everywhere. Story 6. Fursuits make me very anxious. I'm not trolling, I promise. They scare me so much that I start shaking and my heart races when I see one. Feel free to downvote me. It's not about the people who wear them. It's my own problem. Story 7. I am scared of bedbugs. Thankfully, I have never had them in my house, but I have seen them at work. Story 8. Entomophobia, the fear of insects, is fairly common but genuinely difficult to manage. I cannot go outside, particularly in spring and summer, which is frustrating because I love hot weather without feeling anxious about bugs. Sometimes I do not even feel safe in my house because insects can come inside. The most annoying part is other people's reactions. If I have to hear one more person tell me that insects cannot hurt me, I think I will go crazy. Story 9. Fear of positivity. Please do not send me positive energy. Story 10. I fear having no exit even for a short time. Elevators, traffic jams, planes, and long lines I have to stand in, and so on. I can manage the fear, but it is never easy. Story 11. Agoraphobia. Sometimes it is hard for me to leave the house. I am not afraid of anything in particular that might happen, but once I walk out the door I am in a constant state of panic, on high alert and always in fight or flight mode. It is horrible and makes having a social life and a career nearly impossible. I have not been able to get a job for over a year. I am running out of savings and I am not sure what to do. Story 12. Phagophobia is the fear of choking and of stopping or having difficulty breathing. Story 13. Astrophobia developed years after I was too close to a direct lightning strike to feel comfortable. It is difficult because I still love a good thunderstorm, but only from indoors. Unfortunately, it affects my ability to do outdoor activities, because even a chance of lightning sends me into a panic. Story 14. Arachnophobia. I am a rough, tough construction worker, but I will scream like a little girl if a spider is near me, laughing out loud. Story 15. I have coulrophobia and I am not being cute. I have had panic attacks when people have tried to test it. I am also not fond of Santa or mascots. Story 16. Sharks, specifically great white sharks. I'm too scared to Google the exact term. As a kid, I couldn't even think about them in the shower or bath without having to get out and calm down. I'm 27 now, and I can't close my eyes for long in the shower because I see the outline of a shark swimming toward me. I used to have nightmares and would wake with intense anxiety, immediately kicking the covers off because I thought a shark was under them. If I see a picture or video of sharks, my heart starts racing and I feel like they are after me. I'm convinced I must have had a bad interaction with them in a past life. I feel like I was born afraid of them. Story 17. I have claustrophobia, and whenever I put my car in reverse, I have an intense fear that I will hit someone. This started when I almost hit someone. Story 18. Dementophobia is the fear that I am going crazy and will lose touch with reality. I have been diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder. Story 19. Fear of the end of democracy and the rise of corrupt, autocratic oligarchies. Story 20. My mother says she thinks I have mild agoraphobia. I do not enjoy leaving the house or going out. I am comfortable only at home in my own environment. I have become increasingly withdrawn over time. Story 21. I don't know what it's called. Maybe a form of claustrophobia. I am fine with tight spaces, but anything that encloses my head and prevents me from touching my face causes a panic attack. I learned this the first time I went go-karting when they put a helmet on me. Story 22. Submechanophobia, fear of sunken machines, specifically sunken boats. I am well over 6 feet tall and a 250-plus pound man in my late 20s, and it makes me want to walk out of the room when a video comes on. It makes my skin crawl. Videos of the Titanic or sunk battleships give me goosebumps. I hate thinking about it. I have talked about it enough with friends that I think I have pinpointed the start of the trauma. The scene in Pearl Harbor where the sailors are trapped in the sinking Arizona, and walking to shore as a child after a boat ride when I stepped on a sunken boat and badly cut my foot. I grew up near Lake Michigan, which has sunken boats everywhere, all black and slimy under the water. I remember refusing to get out of the boat to snorkel around a sunken boat in the Bahamas. I cannot think of anything scarier than seeing the Titanic from one of those submarines. That would truly be my biggest fear. Fuck that. Story 23. I don't like to write it down. I'm now in hypnotherapy for it. Story 24. Lepidopterophobia means fear of butterflies or moths. I just cannot. Story 25. Lepidopterophobia started when I was young, and I cannot get over my fear of moths. Story 26. I have emetophobia and experience a panic attack almost every time my stomach hurts. It is the most frustrating and embarrassing thing. Story 27. Thalassophobia and acrophobia, the fear of being inside or on top of tall structures. Story 28. Heights and spiders. I have gotten better with spiders and have even let small ones walk on my arm. It may sound weird, but I started talking to them and giving them names. Story 29. I recognize their value but just cannot handle being around spiders. Story 30. Omphalophobia is the fear of belly buttons. I am mostly unaffected by it unless someone starts talking about belly buttons or pointing them out. I would rather die than touch one. Writing about it now makes me physically nauseous. Story 31. Fish. I don't know the species, but once when I was cleaning the aquarium, a fish touched me and I literally cried. I'm terrified of cleaning it now. I've always been more afraid of whales and dolphins than of sharks. They're so creepy. Story 32. I am terrified of crowds. I immediately experience an anxiety attack. If a metro train is packed, it is impossible for me to get in. I avoid concerts and parties with too many people. Living in India is a nightmare for me when I see waves of people in the streets. Story 33. I have a fear of cotton balls. I loathe and despise their sound and texture. I will literally run away if I have to. I am not playing. Laughing out loud. I am out. Story 34. I'm terrified of needles. I'm also a transplant patient. Do you have any idea how many times I get stabbed each year? Story 35. Agoraphobia. The irrational fear of being ignored and forgotten. Story 36. Pregnancy. I live in constant fear of the possibility, no matter how careful I am. I have a literal protocol for that scenario, and it is quite bleak. I would rather die. I would not be able to survive without my psychiatric medication. I feel like a monster because so many people dream of pregnancy, which to me is nightmare fuel. I wish they could have that chance instead of me. Story 37. Vomiting in general is hilarious because I might be pregnant. Story 38. Megalohydrothalassophobia, which is much more specific than thalassophobia. Story 39. I'm afraid that now the Republican Party controls all 3 branches of the United States government and will push its agenda through with no one able to stop them. That women's rights will go backward, and that The Handmaid's Tale is a prophecy rather than fiction. Story 40. I have phobophobia, the fear of feeling fear. I am suffering. Story 41. Choking completely controls my eating habits, and I have anti-choking devices everywhere. Story 42. I cannot look at a screen when someone is chopping vegetables with knives. Story 43. Visible moles on other people, especially on the face, make me feel uneasy at a subconscious level. This feeling goes away if I spend enough time with someone who has them, but it can take months. Story 44. Fear of death causes me to fear many things. The main three are natural disasters, drowning, and airplanes. I am not scared of heights, though. Story 45. Agoraphobia. Fear of being in public and of not being able to escape a situation or get help if needed. I'm a textbook agoraphobe. Story 46. Agoraphobia, emetophobia, acrophobia, parcapresis, thanatophobia. Story 47. Flying and driving on freeways cause me such terrible panic that I no longer force myself to do them. Story 48. Not me, but it would suck to be diagnosed with hippopotomonstrosesquipedaliophobia. Fear of long words. Story 49. I'm not sure this is a phobia, but I have a fear of driving through high water. Even when other cars make it through, I am afraid to try and usually pull over to wait for the water to recede. Story 50. I don't know what this is, but I have a fear of large objects above my head or suspended overhead. For example, a large flag, a sheet hanging on a clothesline, a curtain blowing in the wind, or a giant tapestry hung on a wall. Story 51. I do not know what it is called or if it is real, but low heights terrify me. I will hike up a mountain and look over the edge, but I will not sit on a porch swing, go into a room with slanted walls, or go upstairs and cross a landing because I will become stuck and cannot go back down. I am also claustrophobic. Story 52. I have a fear of being in a body of water with large objects below or around me. It's very strange. I went snorkeling once at a shipwreck. I couldn't even enjoy it. 2 minutes later, I climbed back onto the boat and enjoyed the beach and ocean view while everyone else snorkeled. Story 53. It is dumb and does not affect my life, so I am glad, but potato eyes. I would run down the road if someone tried to put one on me. I once ran a block and did not look back, laughing out loud. Story 54. I feel weird about this because of how I am perceived. I have Instagram to keep up with friends, and I do post pictures of myself, but I constantly archive and unarchive them. I will randomly think, oh shit, people can see what I am up to. I like being low-key and mysterious, but I cannot be when I post authentically. I post authentically because I hate that social media is so fake. Feel free to comment your opinion about how I think, because I know something is wrong with me, but I do not know how to get over it. Story 55. I have a fear of things falling on me. Driving through tunnels and under bridges makes me white-knuckle the wheel and hyperventilate. It mostly happens in cars, and I also really dislike strong winds for the same reason. Something might be blown over and fall on me. Story 56. Tocophobia. Although I have not been diagnosed and it is not extreme, I have an intense aversion and avoid looking at pregnant women, especially bare bellies. It is another reason I chose not to have children. I do not know why, but I have always felt this way. Story 57. When birds flap their wings in my face, it makes me feel like I am going to vomit, cry, or have a panic attack. I was swooped repeatedly by a magpie recently. It felt like an hour but was probably only a couple of minutes, and the disgust and fear are still present. Story 58. I have extreme arachnophobia. I can't even look at a picture. However, for some reason, scorpions don't scare me, even though they resemble spiders. Story 59. Crowds and going outside became more difficult. It started before the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, but became much worse afterward. Story 60. I have a phobia of insects and spiders. I know the name for spiders, arachnophobia, but not the one for insects. I will freak out if a tiny bug is on my skin. Story 61. Not really a phobia, but I am terrified of the heat death of the universe. The idea that one day there will be nothing left is petrifying. Humans can extend our existence by leaving Earth, but eventually the last stars will die. Only black holes and brown dwarfs will remain, and they will also disappear at some point, leaving eternal darkness. This is just a theory, but it terrifies me. Do not mention astrophobia. I know about it and this is not that. Story 62, wigs. I can work with wigs made from real hair, but I can't use fake ones at all. They scare me and make me gag. Story 63. It is interesting to me that about half the comments do not refer to actually having a phobia. Being uncomfortable or jumpy around bugs is not a phobia. A phobia is much more intense and genuinely interferes with your life. I am not surprised, but I am glad hundreds of commenters cannot relate to that level of fear. Story 64. Thalassophobia. I hate deep, dark water. Being in it is my worst nightmare. Fuck that shit. Story 65. Bugs. Once a horsefly landed on my head and I passed out from the scare of my life. I watch videos of Japanese giant hornets online. They make my breathing heavy and my palms sweaty. That one SpongeBob episode left me traumatized when it comes to butterflies. Also, bugs are so nosy. You have the whole world to be in, yet you are in my face. Story 66. I am getting too old to fight in the coming civil war. Story 67. I wanted to answer this, but I realized I do not have a fear I can name immediately, and that is probably more frightening than knowing exactly what you are afraid of. What if all this time I have been afraid of snakes without knowing it, and then I am faced with a snake? Story 68. I do not know the term, but I suffer from a phobia of expired or contaminated food or liquids. I do not have a paranoia condition. I had an eating disorder as a child. This is its evolved form. Story 69. Mild entomophobia, mainly triggered by large flying insects such as June bugs and dragonflies. Story 70. Arachnophobia, the fear of spiders, and dentophobia, the extreme fear of the dentist. Story 71. Caterpillars or anything that looks similar terrified me when I first saw one as a child. I do not know why. Story 72. Colonoscophobia is the fear of having foreign objects inserted into my rectum. Story 73. Bees. I haven't been stung by one yet, but I absolutely freak out at the thought that those insects can sting me with their stingers. I laugh very hard. Story 74. Submechanophobia. I cannot even look into a toilet tank. Story 75. I have a phobia of mushrooms growing in the wild. It disgusts me so profoundly to see them on a stump when I'm out hiking, and it makes my whole body shudder. Story 76. I have a sleeve of tattoos and get bumps and bruises every day that hurt more than needles, yet I am terrified of needles. Story 77. A common fear many people do not recognize is the fear of being accused of having a phobia. Disagreement does not make something a phobia. Story 78. Emetophobia. I get panic attacks at the sound of someone being sick or dry heaving. I feel nauseated by association and instantly become paranoid that they have something contagious like norovirus. Every time I think I can deal with it now, something triggers the response and I have to run or hide where I cannot see or hear the person getting sick. It is paralyzing. Story 79. Claustrophobia is the fear of being trapped. This is different from claustrophobia. It is not related to the size of the space. I have had panic attacks while seated in the middle of a row of 5 seats on a plane and in a massive exhibit that was so packed with people when I was a child. I remember my mother dragging me out a side door. Once I got stuck in an elevator and had a panic attack. Started working quickly, luckily. It took some effort to get into an elevator again, but I could not avoid them because my job requires using elevators. Story 80. Lalapsophobia is the fear of tornadoes. I was at a movie, saw the trailer for Twisters, and had to keep myself from bolting like a spooked horse. Story 81. I have a terrible fear of snails. I think about them daily. Seeing images makes me feel like they are crawling all over me. I start crying if I see one. Story 82. If a person has hippopotomonstrosesquipedaliophobia, the fear of long words, should you tell them? Story 83. Needles, not the tattoo kind but the injection kind, the shot kind, the kind that makes me wonder how it doesn't go through my whole arm. I fucking hate needles. I want to puke just thinking about seeing one. Story 84. I have social phobia. I fear everyday activities such as going to the hairdresser, going to the supermarket, and picking up a delivery because I have to meet and talk to strangers. Walking on the street also makes me feel uncomfortable. Story 85. thunderstorms. I can get through them, but if I have the option and the freedom to be at home with nowhere to go, I will shut my blinds and put my headphones on until it is over. Story 86. Heights. I spent years as a glazier and was called a coward because I would freeze if I was more than 10 feet off the ground. For our anniversary a couple of years ago, my girlfriend and I went to Las Vegas. She wanted to ride the high roller Ferris wheel. I ate an edible, took shots, and drank beers. Those usually help when I am up high. I sat on the bench in our pod and froze until it began to descend. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.